Viewers, you are watching the Policy Times, and I'm your host Akram, and I am here at the Embassy of Mongolia in New Delhi, and I am with the Ambassador Extraordinary of the Republic of Mongolia. Now, Mongolia is a very beautiful country bordered by China and Russia, and it is uh, second largest landlocked country, and it has a GDP of around 13 to 14 billion dollar. In purchasing power parity, it's around 17 plus billion dollar. It's a small landlocked country which has a good boundary, big border, but the population size is around 3 million. And but the country has a very rich history in ruling the world. There was a time when I think Yuan dynasty ruled the entire China. It conquered the entire China, and it has also a very big history in coming to India. We know that that is quite mentioned. Excellency, thank you so much for giving us this interview. Excellency, how do you define India-Mongolia relations since ages?
Akram Hakji, thank you very much for giving me opportunity of talking to your friends. Both Mongolia and India are two of the oldest nations in Asia. We have common bonds because we share common civilization. We enjoy spiritual, cultural, historic bonds. Since the Lord Buddha's teaching prevailed on Mongolia's steppe, we became to know India. We have ancient manuscripts of 12th century called Secret History of Mongols, in which 264, 268 chapter refer to India as a Hindustan. And River Sindh, it's called New River or Shin River. So even at that time of 12th century, Mongolians were very much aware of India. In the great Mughal, in the history of India, great Mughal dynasty plays important role. Sometimes I also amazingly find the short-broken names like Mongolpuri, Mongolbad, Mongolor in Delhi or beyond. Right. So it indicates how we are deeply connected. And our relations are age-long, and when we joined the United Nations, the first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, said that India-Mongolian relations are well over 1,500 years. You see?
Excellent.
And then Buddhism prevailed Mongolia from India, which became part of our way of life, even our philosophy, political philosophy. And we had set up, established diplomatic relations based on these very sympathetic and warm bonds, which is age-long. And we are going to mark 65th anniversary of our state-to-state relations next year. And since we established diplomatic relations, the first Deputy Vice President of India, Dr. Radhakrishnan, visited Mongolia in '56. At the same year, Mongolian embassy was established in New Delhi. At that time, my senior diplomats told me that we were given a plot of land in Chanakapuri. Then our people thought it's out of Scott, it's a wild area. So we moved here in Golf Links. That time, 64 years ago, the present Delhi was not existed. And a lot of years have passed, a lot of changes were also occurred. So our relations are very friendly and warm in political relations. As I mentioned, we have frequent exchange of high-level visits. Year of 2015, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji visited Mongolia and presented us saplings of banyan trees. And Lord Buddha and his two disciples' statue also promised to give Mongolia as a gift of Indian people, which is greatly appreciated. And by the way, that Lord Buddha and his two disciples' statue is built up nicely, and it's going to be inaugurated on 6th of September.
I see.
And last year we also marked the centenary celebration of one well-known monk, well-known ambassador of India in Mongolia, Kushok Bakula. And Minister for External Affairs, Madame Sushma Swaraj, visited Mongolia and made a keynote speech on that occasion. And Rajnath Singh Ji, Home Minister then, visited Mongolia, helped us to lay down the foundation of stone for oil refinery. We are in belief that this project would become very big investment in Mongolia. And Lord Buddha and his two disciples in the statue would become spiritual investment. And since we share a lot of common sense and same culture, though we are sitting on two fringes of Buddhist Asia, you are in the southernmost, we are in the northmost part of Buddhist Asia, we are very close to one another despite geographic distance. We call India, it's a land of Lord Buddha. It's a sacred land where people come here to study. In ancient past, Mongolian monks used to come and study at Nalanda University. At modern time, students also coming, studying in Indian universities. We, as a diplomat, wish to increase their numbers.
Excellent.
Whoever had studied in India, in Indian universities, doing remarkable performances in Mongolia and illustrating the high standards of Indian tertiary education, Indian education system.
Right.
And we also have a cultural exchange. As I said, we have these investment opportunities, and this refinery would help us to create a new way of industrialization in Mongolia. We export a lot of minerals. Land mass-wise, Mongolia, it's a half of India.
Right.
Population, as you mentioned, it's a little over 3 million.
Right.
One of the sparsely populated area. In terms of size of territory, it's 17 in the world. And we have covered with geological survey only 30% of our territory. However, we have revealed over 8,000 deposits and reveals all known minerals. So we export minerals, and India imports minerals, coking coal, gold, iron ore, tin, uranium, every other minerals we export, and we can also create new avenue for our economic ties. Except that we have also very unique geographic setting. It's surrounded by big markets in the South China, in the North Russia, and it's an unsustainable demand of whatever produce. So we can also join our efforts and create a new export avenue. Fortunately, Mongolia enjoys excellent relations with the countries in the region. We have free trade agreement with Japan, and going to have the same one with South Korea. And we have also preferential tariff agreements with European Union. So 7,700 products produced in Mongolia can be sold on European Union countries. So whoever make even a small workshop in Mongolia and produce manufacturing, then they can be sold.
Wow.
And secondly, Mongolia's geographic setting is unique, not from top, but to west to east. It's a horizontal.
Right.
So
Sandwich style.
yeah, it's a shortest route binding Europe and Asia. Number of overflights is increasing tremendously. So it can become good location for data center, for IT, banking, you know.
Excellent.
And people in Mongolia have very soft sympathy, soft corner in their hearts towards India. Whoever visits Mongolia does not need lengthy introduction. It's just say, I'm from India. मैं भारत से हूँ. So everybody will be fall in love, and they will open their doors. You see, because of our ancient ties, and we also share human values at modern time. I would define our relations 3D, like a 5G. 3D means Dharma, democracy, and development. India is known as the largest democracy. We in Mongolia also have a political democracy, market economy. Maybe we call smallest democracy, but not in terms of content. In terms of content, we are rich, but in terms of population-wise, we are smallest. However, we share democracy, and the refinery and IT projects and others would also become component of our sustainable development.
In the first question itself, Excellency, what are the specifics? So you mentioned IT, data center, BPO centers can be the nice destination for Indian investors. Mongolia can be a very nice destination to not only see that as a market, Mongolia as a market, but we can export to Japan, we can export to EU because you have a very nice relation with EU. And then Russia, China is all there, we can explore. Excellency, what are the other sectors you want to focus during your this tenure, apart from the mentioned ones?
Akramji, I would also emphasize that tourism could be one area because in India, the number of families and number of individuals, those have disposable income, can afford to spend their times to whatever they interested, increasing. So Mongolia is one of destination which is attractive. And then we can also work together on media and movies.
Right.
We have also very good shooting sites, which is also cheaper and amazing. We have geographic different zones. At the same day, you may find 4 different seasons climatic. So it's amazing, and you can find Gobi Desert or mountain ranges. Though it's a landlocked country, but we are fortunately blessed with different geographic zones. And it's eastern part, it's an endless Ferrari. And Europeans and other people also do their automobile rally or horse ridings, and even bird watching and adventure tour can be also area where we can work together, you see. And then Mongolia has 7 crore livestock, which is abundant resource of animal husbandry based raw materials. My friends in Varanasi also importing wool, sheep wool, and making hand knotted carpets. They do sell it, market it to US and Europe with value, added value, and making a lot of profit. And also merchants in Kanpur showing interest to import hides and skin from Mongolia. They find it very good quality, you see. And India's pharmaceutical industry is also very good and experienced. They also showing some potentiality to import intestine, which can be used for catgut, for surgery. You know, we export it, we use it as a ham, which is very rudimental necessity. But if we produce it as a jointly catgut, that would increase the value. It would also meet the lot of needs of surgeons here in India, you see. And then satellite tracking and different waves of telephone and cell phone connections could help reduce the distance, not only between us, but within the globe. And banking sector could be also become one of area where we can work. IT, we have Atal Bihari Center for Excellence of IT in Mongolia, and going to enlarge it as a outsourcing and training center, so people can also get trained and work more profitable manner. So there are a lot of areas where we can work.
Absolutely, Excellency. I want to take the last message, a message for the world. For example, as you mentioned when we were talking, that unity can be a strength to solve a lot of world problems. And the world is today suffering from some core issues. For example, climate change. Climate change doesn't take a center stage in the table of discussion. But recently, a United Nations report said that a large millions of people will go below the poverty line, BPL, just because of the water crisis. So water is just one, drought, flood, and there are a lot. This is just one. Terrorism is other big threat to the global peace. Apart from them, there are a lot of other issues where the world trade disputes. For example, today, China and America are on the verge of a trade war. They are already in a trade war with the rise of Trump The war is also escalating. The problem with Iran, the problem with North Korea. Japan has been taking help of Mongolia in terms of solving the North Korea crisis. So, what role Mongolia is playing at the global stage to solve or provide some advocacy, some suggestions or recommendations to this global crisis, and especially to the context of North Korea and some mass issues of global crisis, for example, climate change and all.
Mongolia sits in the Northeast Asia and enjoys excellent relations with countries in the region, both Korea, Japan, or China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. So we can also be the venue of getting together to discuss. Any length of discussion is far better than conflict.
Absolutely.
Too boring. And Mongolia, whatever happens, also conceives it has implication on Mongolia. And we also year to year convince the Ulaanbaatar dialogue. Ulaanbaatar means Lal Bahadur, it's our capital city. And we host dialogue, Ulaanbaatar dialogue on peace and security of Northeast Asia. Korean Peninsula, it's an area where there is Cold War still continue on. Sometimes it's coming to the brink of hot war, you see. So we can also become venue where people, countries in the region could sit together, gather together and discuss. Even it can be also in a form of cultural exchange, in a humanitarian or youth or women empowerment, any other forms.
Right.
So rather than disputing and contradicting, we need to encourage the cultural exchange or the exchange of journalists. Once not everybody can afford to visit, journalists and media people can disseminate information. So in this regard, we can also help to avoid of radicalization or violent terrorism, separatism, which lead to this terrorism. You see, since we enjoy same culture and share same civilization, Buddhism can become the bridge for us to communicate with other countries in the region. And recently, Mongolia also hosted the session of Asian Buddhist Conference for Peace. India and Mongolia with Buryat initiated these international organizations in 1969. I mentioned Kushok Pakula as a highest Buddhist monk who used to Indian ambassador in Mongolia. He was one of the initiators to set up these international organizations. So we marked the 50th anniversary of that institution, international institutions, where all Asian countries, all other the face representatives gather together and discuss what we can do together to make the peace, to make stability, which would also help to bring the prosperity in the region. So in this regard, we can work together. Mongolia, both India in the Shanghai Cooperation Organizations. Right. We have same political visions in a non-aligned movement, in a group of 77, in a world climate change forum, we are together. So instead of fighting with arms or engaging with arms race, we'd better to meet with flowers in the hand. Right. So that's the rationale of same Buddhist teaching.
Right. So here, friends, we are, as I told you, that we are here at the embassy of Mongolia, and with the ambassador extraordinary. The ambassador defined the relation between India and Mongolia in just 3 Ds, as we know 5 Gs. Dharma, Buddhism can be a gateway, not only to connect between India and Mongolia, but it will also connect all the ASEAN and Asian countries. Second was democracy. So India is the largest democracy. Mongolia, in terms of population, is the smallest democracy. So democracy creates another route to connect. The third is development. and development is the priority for any nation in the world. So if we can connect these agendas and if we can work on these 3Ds, I think we can extend and further the relation between India and Mongolia. Thank you so much, Excellency, for the interview, and viewers, keep watching the Policy Times.